I don't think so. Oh boy, guys. Do we have some good stuff to talk about here today in regards to the market? What's going on out there? Oh, I just have so much I want to share here today. NASDAQ going down big here today, down about 2.74% when I took this screenshot here today. I think it closed, the market just closed just a bit ago. I think it closed down about 2.5%. So big move down for the NASDAQ after yesterday. Fed speaks, right? Everybody's like, oh, finally, woohoo, we're going up, baby. And we went up and then we went down, okay? And went down big, right? About, it's not like that's a small move, right? NASDAQ down 400 points or so, definitely not small. By the way, make sure to subscribe to this channel if you're not already. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified every time I drop a video on this channel, okay? Russell down big today, down about 2%. Now, this is important. There were some stocks in the Russell here today, and we're going to get to a really big story in this video and some really in-depth thoughts I want to share with you guys. I just want to cover this real quick here at the beginning. But the Russell here today down big, but there are certain stocks, that are smaller cap stocks that actually might even have been up today, right? Or not really down. So there could be a big bottoming effect in some of these stocks that have already been heavily damaged. And despite the NASDAQ having an awful day, the Russell having an awful day, there's certain stocks out there that, they weren't even down today, right? That's an interesting movement there, right? When you start to see a day like that and some stocks not even being down or down far less in the market, it's something interesting that's going on out there, right? But look at the Russell here, right? If we go back to January 21st, 2021, we are now lower. We're now lower than we were January 21st, right? So down since then. We're still up on the year, so it is something important to keep in mind, but gosh, we're still down since January 21st. Like, isn't that amazing to even think about that? In a year when the S&P 500's been, phenomenal, the NASDAQ's been phenomenal. Santa Claus rally, a lot of people obviously talking about a Santa Claus rally, especially after yesterday and what happened, okay? The Santa Claus rally refers to the tendency that the stock market to rally over the last weeks of December into the new year. Theories for the existence include increased holiday shopping, optimism fueled by the holiday spirit, and institutional investors settling their books before going on vacation. Regardless of the reason, more than 2/3 of Decembers dating back to the 1960s have resulted in positive gains for shareholders. Still, with as many market anomalies, is that how you pronounce it? I can never, that's one of those words, I can never pronounce it right. Anomalies? Oh gosh, just a frustrating word. It may just be random. There's no guarantee, obviously, it will continue in the future, but everybody's talking about Santa Claus rally, right? And here we go. We got the Santa Claus rally coming in, baby. And what did we get here today? NASDAQ down 2.5%. Russell down almost 2%. Like, obviously, no Santa Claus rally seen as of yet, even though everybody is obviously talking about it, especially after yesterday with the Fed and whatnot, right? We do have to remember there's still 2 weeks left in the year. And yeah, you can definitely get a Santa Claus rally here, but you got to remember there still can be more tax loss harvesting, right? I think most folks have already done it by this stage in the game. However, you can't deny the fact that there still could be a last few stragglers here right before the end of the year trying to tax loss harvest and write off losses against gains. But like I said, I think most people have already done this because most people that do tax loss harvesting are educated on this, and most folks like to be able to get back into their positions in either January or February. If you start pushing out toward the end of December, like you have to wait just a longer period of time, stocks could have jumped already by then. The next earnings periods might have already come out, and if you were really bullish on that company, all of a sudden you're in a situation where you might have to pay a much higher price, and the higher price you have to pay, it basically offsets or maybe even more than offsets the loss you took on that stock to write off against stock gains. So something very, very important to keep in mind there. But you can't deny the fact that it is possible we still could have some tax loss harvesting, right? And you're never safe until you get out of January, in my personal opinion, okay? Now, S&P 500, I want to go through a little history lesson because this is really, really important here. If we go back to December 24th of 2018, December just got into a really rough market, and through part of December of 2018, it was the worst stock market situation we had in a December, like literally since the Great Depression at one point, okay? And as of December 24th, 2018, which was a Wednesday, that's when the market bottomed. So this is very, very important, okay? So obviously Christmas that year was on Thursday. The 26th was on Friday. And so then you only had a few days of the new year there, right? And sure enough, we bounced back after Christmas. But the key word is after Christmas. So that particular year, there was no Santa Claus rally before Christmas time, okay? It came after Christmas, okay? So it wasn't really a Santa Claus rally. It was maybe into the New Year rally. Also, if we look at the S&P 500, there was another big dip on January 3rd that happened. And what you're going to see is a lot of stocks bottomed on the 24th, but there's some stocks that either double bottomed or actually even hit new lows, new 52-week lows on the January 3rd, okay? So it's very, very important that some of it even went into the very, very beginning of January. If you look at Apple stock, it's a perfect example, okay? Now, this was a different market at that time. In that particular market period, pretty much everything got hit hard. Like, I don't remember any stocks not getting hit. The most recent situation in the stock market has been small caps have been devastated, and a lot of mid caps have even been hit, right? Meanwhile, you have companies like Apple, Microsoft, Google basically holding the whole stock market on its back, right? Basically doing that. And you've even seen companies like Nvidia get hit very recently. Even Tesla stock's gotten hit pretty hard very recently. But there's still a few big dogs holding this whole thing up. But in that market, there was nothing holding anything up. Everything was down, okay, including Apple at that particular time. And if we look, guess what? Apple hit a big low on the 24th, but then hit an even bigger low on the 3rd of January, all right? So this is very important. Apple stock did not bottom. Despite the market bottoming on December 24th, Apple stock didn't bottom until January 3rd. Something very, very important to keep in mind here. If we check out Nvidia stock back then, right? Nvidia hit a bottom of about $31 right here, and then again right around $31, $32 right here as well. And I know that sounds silly now that Nvidia is $285, a few years later, but basically it double bottomed, right? It bottomed on December 24th, and it bottomed again on January 3rd. And so, I think this is, I want everybody to be prepped here that if you don't get a bottom in December, you could get a bottom in early January, like we saw with countless of these stocks in 2018. Doesn't mean, just because it's December 31st, like then you're in the clear. Sometimes it can carry into that first week of January. If we look at Facebook at that particular time, which was a stock I was buying extremely heavy during that period, right? Facebook, it bottomed at 124 on December 24th, and this was a stock that started to go up. But remember, also in regards to FB, that was one that had been hit tremendously hard during that time period, okay? And so it started to give signs of it just couldn't go down anymore. There just weren't any sellers left in FB at that particular time. And so even though a lot of these other stocks like an Apple, Nvidia either double bottomed or hit a new 52-week low on January 3rd, Facebook just started going up because there was nobody left to sell that stock anymore. The stock had just been devastated so bad. People like myself were buying that stock obviously really, really heavy back when it was $124. It was just a very, very cheap stock at that given moment, okay? If we look at Amazon, Amazon also was another one of those stocks that had been hit really, really hard, and you couldn't find any sellers left in Amazon stock, even with, things getting rough again on January 3rd. December 24th was a bottom for Amazon stock. It hit about $1,300-ish at that particular time for Amazon stock. It just, when you run out of sellers in a stock, all you can have is buying pressure come in, right? And that's what ends up happening in some of these stocks that get hit tremendously hard, like an Amazon was at that particular time, Facebook was. Apple, you still had some more selling pressure come in because you had some folks that are selling. So that's a kind of a warning I want to give to people out there. If you're looking at Apple, Google, Microsoft, and these stocks that have done really, really well over the past year, keep in mind those are the sorts of stocks that you could still get a lot more selling pressure because there's plenty of people that will be willing to sell those stocks, right? Versus if you look at a lot of these small caps, right? It's hard to find sellers now, and that's why you get a big, huge down day today, and then all of a sudden you see certain stocks out there that are some of these small caps, and they're up. What? There's nobody left to sell those dang stocks anymore. Okay, that's just the way it goes in the market, right? I remember very vividly, I was staying at this 5-star resort. It was probably one of the first times I ever stayed at like a 5-star place in Scottsdale near Camelback Mountain. And man, that was an interesting kind of little vacation I took there. And I was just with my wife. We stayed at this resort, and meanwhile the market was just getting absolutely devastated during this particular time period. And man, it was a crazy time period. During that month of December, we lost from basically, let me see, it was probably the beginning of December, or maybe I think it started actually in November. From November to the first couple weeks of January, We lost half the members of the private stock group during that time period in 2018 into the very beginning part of 2019. Half the members of the private stock group left, okay? A lot of folks just looked at that market, and it was a rough one. Everybody was getting devastated, and a lot of folks dropped out of the stock market, unfortunately, because oh gosh, if they had just if they had just made it through, man, if they had just made it through, oh my gosh, it's just painful to think about, like, how many people dropped out at that time instead of buying the dip, right? Buying the dip in so many great companies and so many growth companies that were falling during that time. Think about, if they had been buying Tesla stock or Facebook or Apple or Amazon, like, you didn't even have to buy crazy companies. Nvidia was $31 on a split adjusted basis. Like, shoot, we could have pulled up AMD during that time, but we lost half the members of the private stock group within a 2-month span. It was incredible. And I remember, staying at this baller resort, feeling like a boss, because, like I said, it was one of my first times I ever stayed at a 5-star place, and it was just like, wow, man, I'm getting devastated on stocks. Half my members of my private stock group just left. Wow, this is quite a market. And it was what it was at that particular time, and it was vicious. It was absolutely vicious, and there was nowhere to hide. There was nowhere to hide during that market. Just flat out. There was no, I can't remember. Tesla stock held up actually pretty decent, but outside of Tesla, I can't remember any stock doing well during that time of December. It was just like 99.9% of stocks were down, down, down. Everybody, obviously, in the media was talking about how the markets were getting hit. It was the worst December at one point since literally the Great Depression. Then, like I said, the market bottomed on December 24th and started to come back. And then, a lot of these stocks didn't bottom until January 3rd. Something very, very important to keep in mind. There, I posted this photo from that resort. I think it was on December 22nd or the 23rd of stock market December 2018. I said, this is a live photo for the stock market in December. I still have the same sense of humor back there, then just a lot less followers. For those that you don't know, we're having the worst December since the Great Depression. And it was true. We were literally, I don't know if it was through the 21st or the 22nd or what it was, but we were on pace for the worst December since the Great Depression. It was extraordinary. And it was quite a market to kind of deal with at that time. I think right now, and it was interesting because I looked at that post on my Instagram, and I was just trying to see like what the vibes were of like what people were posting at that particular time. And I gotta say, it was a lot of people were understanding the game. I was kind of proud of that. A lot of people were like, hey, I understand, like, buy the dip. Obviously, not everybody did that. Like I said, we lost half the members of the private stock group during that time, so not everybody quite understood that. But nonetheless, let's speak about this in kind of the market and where things kind of go from here and kind of my perspective on this. First off, I think this has been a more vicious market for a lot of investors to go through here, right? Because you got to understand, like, first off, a lot of people came in with big expectations. If you got in the market in the past 12 to 18 months, you came in with big expectations, right? And obviously this year has just been an extreme disappointment for most stocks that retail investors hold, right? Also, the devastation, to be honest, this year has been worse than it was in December of 2018. The December of 2018 and just kind of that crash scenario we had there, that was vicious from the perspective of you couldn't miss it because almost every single stock in the stock market was being affected by it, and it was all over CNBC, it was all over everybody, and so everybody was kind of felt together in this, and it was just devastation in the market going on, right? Like I said, we were down literally the most throughout December, like since the Great Depression, right? We got saved with the last few trading days of December that made us come up to make us not be the worst December since the Great Depression during that year. But this one's been more vicious for folks. Let's be quite honest, because a lot of these stocks that folks have been in, they've gone down 60, 70, 80%, right? 50%, 40% since a lot of folks were getting in if you were buying in the springtime, the summertime, anything like that, right? And so the time period to go through has been more vicious for a lot of investors out there. And they're like, oh my gosh, when is this pain going to end, right? They've seen some of these stocks go down. Like look at a stock like SDC. That's a good example, right? That stock was $16 at some point this year, so I'm sure people were paying $14, $15, $16 for that stock, right? Let's say it falls to $7. You're down 50% or so, right? Or maybe even more than 50%, and you average down. And then it falls to $350, right? 7 to 350 is a 50% fall, right? So now all of a sudden you're down 70%, maybe over 70% on that stock, right? And then all of a sudden it falls to $250. And you're just like, oh my gosh, I guess it's going to zero, right? And that sort of pain is absolutely relentless, right? Absolutely relentless. And so I feel like the pain has been worse for investors, and I think it even compounds worse because folks have looked at the S&P this year and like, look at the S&P, it's doing so well. Look at Apple stock, it's doing so well. Look at Google stock, it's doing so well. Look at Microsoft. I could have just put my money in the biggest companies and made a bunch of money, right? And they look at it from that perspective, and it hurts even worse. If every single stock in the market's falling, we all feel, we're all part of that, right? But if you're all in small caps, right, and you're buying into small caps and they just keep going down and down and down, you're like, oh my gosh. And meanwhile, you see Apple go up, it's even a worse feeling to you psychologically, right? Because you're like, dude, why don't I just put all my money in dang Apple stock? It's at $3 trillion. And so that's something that I think hurts people even worse in this sort of market, and the pain, is even more vicious, okay? Now, at the end of the day, you got to understand a few things, right? Apple, Google, Microsoft, those sorts of stocks could easily pull back some more. So just keep that in mind. Those ones have been the ones to hold the whole ship up. Those ones could fall back more. Now, a lot of people are worried, well, what if those ones fall back more? Does that affect small caps or some of these other stocks? Probably not too much. And the reason being, it will affect usually if those stocks haven't already fallen. But because so many of these stocks have already fallen and they've gotten basically all the sellers out, remember, who's really in a lot of those big companies? The funds, right? The funds are really in a lot of those, the hedge funds and just big funds in general. And so a lot of those same funds, they're not in the small caps. So it is literally possible that you could see Apple, Google, Microsoft pull back 5%, 7%, and actually not see your small cap stock you've been buying that has already been devastated not fall much at all. If even go up during that time period, which is even a crazy concept to think about, okay? Because the funds, they're not in a lot of these stocks that are $1 billion market cap that everybody's already sold out of. And the buying pressure coming into those can be much more immense. And remember, a lot of those stocks are max shorted. So the short squeezes you can get on the other side can be absolutely ripper rallies, as they call them, okay? And so, yeah, I think that's something to kind of keep in mind here, guys. The Santa Claus rally, if it doesn't come, hey, it doesn't come. As far as, what happens in the market, I think to a lot of us, it doesn't really matter. I don't have any money invested in Apple right now. I don't have any money invested in Google. I don't have any money invested in Microsoft. I care about what happens with Tattooed Chef stock. I care about what happens with Corsair Gaming. I care about what happens with WBA. I care about what happens with Honest over the coming months, HNST, and obviously over the coming years for all these stocks, right? Those are stocks that are kind of moving the game for me. Obviously, Tesla's still a major position for me. So these are the sorts of stocks that at the end of the day are going to move my accounts. Whatever happens with Apple and Google and Microsoft over the coming weeks or the next month, that doesn't make a difference to me, okay? And so I think it's even possible, all right? I think it's even possible that in January, some of these stocks like Apple, Google, Microsoft, some of the big dogs, I think it's a possibility, not a for sure, but I think it's a possibility some of those stocks could pull back in January. And maybe some folks that have been wanting to sell those stocks but didn't want to pay the taxes in this calendar year. Okay? Because think about it. Imagine you got big gains on this past year on Apple stock. Do you really want to go ahead and cash out right now and have to pay taxes on that right away? Why not sell in January? All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this as always. Much love. Hope you got some value out of this and have a great day.